All right, and we are on the air. So thank you guys for coming for this edition of Author Chat. I really need to start adding numbers back to these because I don't know what number we're on. So today we've got author Karen Ann Hopkins. She is the author of Temptation and Embers. And I've got 3 lovely books for everybody to win today, as well as some swag. And these, of course, are all signed, and there's like actually a lot of swag in these. Is that all of it? Did I miss some? Oh, I missed some. I knew I missed some. So there's also some bookmarks. So we'll have a few winners. Can't beat that. Booyah. So, of course, stay until the end of the show, and I will pop the link to the giveaway on the event page. And if you have a question, you can ask it via the little there's 9 little squares. If you're watching this on Google+, you can click that and go to the Q&A. You can ask it via Twitter. You can ask it via Facebook. You can ask it via YouTube, or you can post it like Rachel here is doing to the event page. So ask a question and I will find it. So without further ado, here is Karen, and there you are on. You can tell us a little bit about yourself and your books, and then we'll get in with the questions.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Karen Ann Hopkins. I am in northern Kentucky, right across the river from Ohio. We live on a farm with horses and goats and peacocks and chickens and ducks, all kinds of animals. I homeschool my children, and I'm also a writer. I write in several different genres. The Temptation series is young adult contemporary. That was my first series. That's published by Harlequin Teen. And I also have my paranormal series, The Wings of War, which is Embers. The sequel to that comes out in August, which is called Gaia. And then I have my adult mystery series, Serenity's Playing Secret, which is Amish themed, but it's the sheriff involved is a woman who is not Amish, obviously, and it's her interactions with the Amish people. And that is adult mystery, so I have a little bit of something for everybody. Actually, you can find at least one of my books can suit most people.
All right. So the first question, we'll get into questions. What are you working on right now?
Right now, I am finishing up the second round of edits for Secrets in the Grave, which is the 3rd book in the Amish Mystery series. Lamb to the Slaughter is the first one, and Whispers from the Dead was the second, and now Secrets in the Grave is the 3rd. And it is, again, about a sheriff who's a young woman, and she has part of her community or part of her jurisdiction is an Amish community. So she has to deal with that, and she has a romantic involvement with an ex-Amish man. He grew up Amish, but he left the Amish, and he helps her do the investigations. It's a gritty series. It is adult themed. There's obviously some romance and some language, which obviously aren't in my young adult books. And but I was able to draw with my experiences of living in an Amish community for 8 years, and some of the more creepy, strange elements that I couldn't get into my young adult books are in those books. So that's what I'm working on right now, is finishing up the edits, and that book should be out in September, early September.
Okay. The next question is, with the self-published additions to the Temptation series, how hard was it to keep the covers consistent?
Well, not too difficult for me because I have a great cover design artist, Jenny Zemanek. She's in Ohio, and she's with Seedlings Design. And she's great. She worked with me when I decided to do a 4th book in the Temptation series, which is Rachel's Deception. She studied the first 3, and we came up with an idea of what we wanted for the 4th one that still stayed with and looked well with the original 3 books that were designed by Harlequin. Just as a side note, the models in the first 3 books, Temptation, Belonging, and Forever, were the same, and they're a couple in real life. They were engaged and a couple in real life, so that was really neat. Of course, in the 3rd one, or the 4th one, it does not focus on Rose and Noah. They're in the story, so we had to come up with a new model for that. And as far as the other books, again, she's helped me with that. You want to keep the consistency between the covers. You don't want them exactly the same, but you want to see that tie. And she's really good. So she helped me. So that part wasn't difficult. I really enjoyed the design part of the covers.
How different was it publishing via mainstream and self-publishing?
Very different. I started out with Harlequin. I was lucky enough to sell my Amish young adult themed romance contemporary to them, and it was a great experience. It started me out. I learned a lot with that experience. Moving into self-publishing, which there's a lot. I am a hybrid author, and there's a lot of us out there. You're not as constricted as far as what you want to do to promote your books, as far as sales and cover design, different promotional tactics, which in traditional publishing, it's very much the same thing. They don't get out of the box too much. And as a self-published author, you can, if something isn't working, you can change it quickly. I love that part of it. You're in a lot more control, whether it's successful or not successful, but you make those decisions. So it's been, both experiences have been great. I still work with Harlequin. They're still very supportive. But it's enjoyable to do things on your own, to pick your own cover, to pick your own synopsis, to pick your, the direction of your novels, and to be able to control the prices. Because right now, so much is moving towards cheaper books, online, e-books, that we have to evolve with that. And in some ways, the traditional publishing isn't quite evolving with that. For instance, I have a daughter who's 15. She reads several books a week, and I could not afford to keep her in those books, just going to Barnes & Noble and getting her 3 books a week. So she downloads a lot of books that are on sale or free. And, that it's something that as a self-published author, you get the option to do that. You can control the price and therefore, get your book out to more people.
Okay. With Ember's The Wings of War, how did you come up with the story of Ember?
I had been dreaming and thinking about it for years, well before I started my Amish series. I wasn't brave enough to write it. I felt the paranormal, writing a paranormal book was more difficult in my mind at the time. But when I was living in the Amish community, I had all these interactions with the Amish people, and it inspired me to write Rose and Noah's story. I was actually writing from reality, from experiences and observations with the people in the community, but also the kids that would come to my horse farm. I was a riding instructor. I worked with a lot of the teenage Amish children and discussing with them certain things that was going on in their lives. It revved me up to begin writing. So I wrote those stories. But by the time I was done with Forever, I kind of wanted to take a break from the Amish world, and I thought, well, I've always had this idea in my head for Embers, and I decided to go with it. And after I wrote it and had some critique partners read it, they loved it, I thought I'd go forward with it. But in between that, I actually did write Lamb to the Slaughter, my Amish mystery, before Embers, which again was Amish themed. So by the time I got to Embers, I was really excited to sort of just get away from the Amish world and also get away from reality, because when you're writing about a true culture, you have to really keep in mind and be careful and be respectful of what it really is to be Amish. So I had a lot of fun with Embers, definitely. But I was inspired to do that because I needed a break from the Amish world, and I love fantasy. That's my favorite type of book to read myself. So.
The next question is, what do you enjoy most about writing?
Well, the escapism part of it, and that you are in control. So little you're in control of in your own world, whether you have kids or you're going to school or you're working. There's so many things that you just can't control. But when you're writing a book, you do have control over the characters. And in a way, when you're writing, the book kind of comes alive and starts taking on a life of its own, doing its own thing, and you're like, well, I wasn't exactly meaning for it to go that way, but for the most part, it's the idea that it is something that I can do, that I can actually control the outcome of, and so that's really great. The other thing is I am a homeschool mom. I live on a farm in a rural area, so it's something I can do at home, and I can you know, I just finished up my third book in about 6 months writing, but now I'm going to take a little bit of a break, work on promoting, and continue with my ideas, but you can schedule your time a little bit more than a conventional job.
The next question is, so which one have you loved more, the real life story of Temptation or the fantasy of Embers?
Well, I guess I would have to say Embers, just because, you know, living in an Amish community, I saw couples, I saw kids go through really traumatic events, experiences. So it's difficult to be Amish. There's a lot of kids that grow up Amish and they're not sure they want to stay Amish, but if they leave, they're going to be shunned by their family. They're going to lose those friendships, those ties. They have to start over. I've watched several kids go through the process and actually leave. I've seen some kids come back. I've seen other kids that were somewhat rebellious stay Amish and get married and start having children and be very happy. But it's still, there's a lot of turmoil. It's difficult to be Amish, and so writing those books is a little bit stressful because, again, I'm trying to stay very true to what actually happens with the kids, what they go through, and some of it is sad and difficult, more so than the average teenager who's not Amish. On top of everything of being a teenager is, they have the whole fact of not having modern conveniences and their culture, the rules, regulations. So writing my paranormal, it's great because it's an escape. It is fantasy. We have angels and demons and shapeshifters and monsters and communicating with animals. So, you know, even though the subject of Embers is kind of heavy because it is the end of the world, apocalyptic, biblical, it's still easier in a way than the Amish because, again, like I said, it is difficult. All my books, if you read any of my Amish books, you see the struggle the teenagers go through, and I've been involved with that firsthand. So, you know, I would say that it's enlightening to write the Amish, and I enjoy doing it, but it's also difficult because it's like reliving and putting down in words exactly what I'm seeing going on in the community sometimes.
The next question is that you stated that you spent time in an Amish community. Did you get to live alongside them for research for Temptation?
Yes. Well, when I first moved, we moved from Tennessee to Kentucky. My husband had got work up in Lexington. We ended up moving north of Lexington to a community called Mays Lick, Kentucky. And all of my neighbors around me were Amish. We just happened to buy a house that was in the middle of Amish country. What was unique with my experience is that I immediately started giving riding lessons. And I had a group of non-Amish teenagers coming to the farm. And I coach a drill team, which is horseback riding to music. So we're playing the music out in the arena. I've got a lot of teenagers out there. My own children, my two oldest were teenage boys at the time. And these Amish kids started coming in, groups of them. I had about 18 at one point, and they all knew how to ride, but they wanted to learn a higher level of riding. And it was also a way for them to get away from the doldrums at their own farms and just kind of get away. So for about a year, these kids were coming, and they were riding, and I saw the interactions between the Amish kids and the non-Amish kids. You saw flirting, you saw friendships develop that you think were impossible. And that inspired me with Rose and Noah. So I got to talk to these kids. They told me their problems. The teenagers are usually rebellious at that point. They're not sure what they want to do. They're angry, and they talk. So I learned a lot that way, but I also drove the Amish women into town to do their shopping. So I got very close with a lot of the Amish mothers, and we took an Amish family to Gatlinburg with us for a vacation, all 10 of them, and that was fun. I've been to 7 Amish weddings, numerous other Amish events. So throughout a course of almost 8 years, I had all that playing into all of my writing and what you see in the Temptation books and Serenity's Plain Secrets.
The next question is, how do you deal with writer's block?
Oh, that's a good one. One thing, I don't think you can force it. Sometimes I have, like I said, I wrote 3 books in the last 6 months. It was sort of a whirlwind of creativity in my mind, but I could not do another one right now. I need a break. In the past, like when I was writing, when I wrote Temptation, I didn't have to worry. I already had Temptation written when I sold it, but when I wrote Belonging and Forever, I was under a deadline, and that was difficult. And there were a few times where I got a little stuck in the story of which way I wanted to go. For me, going outside, going for a horseback ride, taking a couple of days off, going to a movie, just getting away from it helped immensely. And then all of a sudden, the creativity comes back, the ideas come back, it's like, bam, yeah, that's what I want to do. But you can't force it. If you just sit there staring at the computer screen, it's not going to get any better. For me, it works to get away, do something else, even if it's for a few days, and then go back to it.
The next question is, what is your favorite snack and drink when you're writing?
Well, if it's wintertime, I love hot cocoa. But I almost always have peanut M&Ms nearby. I don't know. They help because you can just take a few of them so you don't feel like you're really pigging out. But peanut M&Ms, hot chocolate in the wintertime. During the summertime, water. If I'm doing it late at night, if I'm burning the midnight oil with it, I'll have a Pepsi and get a little caffeine.
Do you have any favorite book quotes from your series?
It's hard just pulling them out. I have all these different books going on. I think if you read, if people that have read the Temptation series, one of the characters, Sam, is Rose's brother. He was a lot of fun to write, sort of like you'd get away from Rose and Noah and all their intense passion and drama, and then you'd have Sam, who was looking at it from the outside. And he would come up with, and again, when you're writing, it's like, where does this stuff come up from? But he would always have something funny to say, humorous, sarcastic. He cared about his little sister. He loved her, but you just kind of want to smack him sometimes. And other times, you almost want to tear up because you're like, wow, he really loves his sister. I can't think of any off the top of my head from him, but Sam is the one that comes up with those moments where you're like laughing out loud, because he's usually saying the things that as a reader, you're thinking.
The next question is that if Rose wouldn't have ever met Noah, what do you think her life would have been like?
Very different. Oh my goodness. If she hadn't met Noah, she would have definitely continued with her dance, but she would have gone to vet school. She's a very determined girl. More than likely, she would have become a vet. That was her dream. It's funny because having been a riding instructor for about 18 years altogether, I know a girl who she met a cowboy. She was on the road to full ride scholarship at UT to become a vet, and she met a rodeo guy, and she changed course, and she's got a lovely family now. I'm very happy, but it's fascinating to see that it really does happen, that people can make a complete turn. I believe her life would have been absolutely different. Noah was the factor that made her want to be that family woman.
Will we get any more stories in the Temptation series?
Well, I've got 4 out. I have one more book in my mind that, again, will continue to follow Rose and Noah, because, and even in my 4th book, they ended up taking up Rose took up a larger portion because she is such a, you talk about characters being real. She's very pushy in my mind. She sort of took over somewhat, and she had quite a bigger story than I originally intended. But I really want to focus on Sam and Summer. Again, they live in the Amish community. They interact with the Amish, so it'll still be Amish themed. But the characters are so vibrant, and many people have told me that they would love to see, a little bit more focus on the two of them. So I am hoping to do another book that'll come out next year called Summer's Song. And again, it'll have all your loved characters from the Temptation series, but it will also focus on what's going on with Summer and Sam.
Let's see. Do you write full-time, or do you have another job?
Well, the past year my work as an author has been full-time. So much more. The writing is part of it, and the editing. And I will, when I'm actually writing a book, I'll put 7 or 8 hours a day in writing. But then you've got a couple, 2 or 3 hours more of promoting and social media and going to events. I do a lot of high schools visits and library visits and book festivals. So it's a completely full-time job, but then I also do homeschool my kids and take care of the farm. So it's kind of like I have several full-time jobs. But luckily I don't have to like actually put on a suit and go out anywhere to work separate from the house. Everything's at the house at this point.
Okay, the next question is, how did your family feel when you decided to start writing?
That's a great question, because when I first started writing, I was too scared to tell anyone. The only people that knew were my children. I was going through a divorce at the time, and writing the Temptation series really helped dealing with that situation, but I didn't feel like I was worthy to be writing, I guess you could say. I didn't feel like an author. I just had this idea, and I really wanted to get it down. I wanted to write it. So my kids knew. I couldn't hide it from them. I would be up writing until 3 o'clock in the morning, but I didn't tell anyone else. No one knew about it until I got an agent. When I had an offer for representation with an agent, then I was like, okay. I told people, yeah, I've been writing for the last year, and people were totally dumbfounded, because I was the riding instructor, and I would write articles for all of our equestrian drill team and our 4-H horse club, but no one, yeah, people were shocked. But that's when I told them. I waited. I didn't feel comfortable telling them up front in advance, because I didn't know if it was going to work out.
Well, this is what I'm talking about, like, but I will find your questions sooner or later. Somebody texts me questions, so you know that you can put them pretty much anywhere, and we'll find them.
Awesome.
So the question is there a message in any of your books that you hope your readers will grasp?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to educate people about the fact that there are cultures within the United States that are completely foreign, but they thrive. I mean, when you think about the Amish, they stop school in 8th grade. They don't use electric. Their locomotion is horse and buggy. It is incredible, and it exists, and these societies are growing. If you have 10 children and maybe 4 of them leave the Amish, you still have 6 kids, which is way more than the national average of children that are staying Amish. So they're growing. So I enjoy teaching people, because some people have preconceived notions of the society being one way or the other, and having lived within it and really known Amish people, I can give a certain reality to it. Plus, I want people to understand just the hardships that the Amish youth go through. All of my books end up having, even my adult mysteries, have some issue with teenagers, because I just find it it's so interesting what they go through on top of everything, just being a teenager, what they go through, and to make that decision, because they're giving up future education, they're giving up for a woman a career, so many things, and yet they choose to stay that way. And for the most part, most of them are successful and happy and pretty well grounded. So yeah, I mean, I just want to bring a realism to readers, teach them a little bit about a world that's very close to them. I mean, you can find Amish in almost every state. Obviously, most of them are in Ohio and Indiana. Of course, they're in Kentucky, but you know, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, New York, they're everywhere. So I think people are going to start seeing a little bit more of them.
All right, the next question is, what books are on your TBR list?
Well, I have not read The Mortal Instruments, And I've wanted to pick those up. And to be honest, I'd like to go back and read The Hunger Games. I have not read those either. Again, I started watching the movies with my daughter, and I thought, well, it's kind of hard to read something and watch it at the same time. So that's something I'd like to do. And I want to catch up on Katie McGarry. She's also a fellow Kentucky author. I want to catch up on some of her books because I haven't been able to do that. It's hard when you're writing because you really, again, even when I'm not writing, I'm still promoting my book, so it's really hard to actually sit down and pick up a book and read it. But you know, I'm hoping that when I go on vacation next week, I'll be able to get some reading in.
The next question is, what was the hardest scene you had to write?
Well, I would say, and of course it's not, I hope this isn't a spoiler for people because this isn't the first Temptation book. The hardest scene was Noah's accident with the horse and buggy. Living in an Amish community, there have been several accidents that I knew of that happened. One accident in particular happened before I moved to the community, about 6 months before I moved to the community. One of my neighbors, they were in the process of moving from Indiana to Kentucky. And they were pretty much moved, except their teenage children had stayed in Indiana a little bit longer to finish up some things with their farm. And they were going to a youth event. And this woman, this family's daughter, who was 17 at the time, and her boyfriend, and her brother were riding in a buggy. And that buggy was hit by a semi-truck. The girl, the daughter, was killed, and so was her boyfriend. And her brother was paralyzed. And the family had to rush from Kentucky back to Indiana. They didn't make it in time to say goodbye to their daughter. Horrific. When you think about it, just the idea of having an accident with a car with a semi, but imagine being in a buggy. When I lived in the community, there were several other accidents. One accident, a man was ejected from his buggy. He broke his collarbone and his pelvis, but he insisted on shooting his own horse. The horse had to be put out of its misery. Its legs were broken. Another one, 3 little girls were driving a buggy down the road. They were all under 15, and they were ejected from the buggy when it was hit by a small car. Thankfully, it was a small car. The horse broke loose. The horse was fine. The girls were fine. One girl broke her wrist. But these were things that were just happening. I had a horse and a buggy. It was a young horse, flip out in front of my house and took out my mailbox. So it's dangerous. The horses and buggies are a dangerous element to being Amish. And when I wrote the scene with Noah, a lot of these stories, these accounts actually played into it. But it was very hard because he loved his horse. His horse's name was Rumor, and if anyone read, they'll know that that was his horse. If you're a horse person like me, to actually write the scene, Noah was severely injured, but for some reason the horse bothered me even more. The horse, what happened to the horse, and writing it. It was a very emotional scene, and I had a lot of my students calling me up, texting me after they read that scene, just very upset. But yeah, that was a difficult one, and that was in Temptation, and difficult on many accounts because again, this sort of thing does happen in reality.
I do that with movies or books, anything. If any animal gets hurt, I bawl.
Yeah. It's weird, isn't it? The dog.
It's like, who cares about the human? You know, the people, they can get kidnapped and killed and maimed and murdered.
I don't know.
Okay, shh. And we don't, you know, I care, but I don't care as much if they kill fluffy little, you know, puppy dog or something.
I understand. So that's the way it was definitely with that one scene. It was really hard. Being a horse person, it was even more difficult.
Right. And our last question for tonight is, what is one book that you think everybody should read that is yours and one that is not yours?
Oh, okay. All right. As far as not mine, I think everyone at some point in their life should read Watership Down, which Richard Adams is about rabbits. But what's so neat about it is whether you're an adult or you're a child, I've read it to my kids several times. I have kids 5 children, they're spanning, 20 years. So I've read it several times, then read it on my own. It has a lot of aspects that just pertain to humanity in general, things that happen with people, with bullying and decisions, and how society, whether you're rabbits or people, handle things. So even though you think, well, it's a rabbit book, it's not going to be that deep. It is. Great book. I highly recommend it. As far as my books, I really, of course, I want everyone to read all of my books, but I really would like people to try out Embers. Those people that love my Amish books, I'd love you to try Embers. Give it a try. Gaia comes out in August. It's biblical. It's epic. In the second book in Gaia, there's actually a little bit of Amish in there. I couldn't quite resist it. We had to find someone who was hiding, and I thought, what better place for a person that was descended of angels to hide out, but in an Amish community. So that was an exciting element to Gaia. It's grand. So I'm hoping people will give that series a try because, like I said, I've got a huge following for my Temptation series and for my adult Amish mystery series. You know, give that one a try. I think you'd be surprised and enjoy it, even if you're not a paranormal person.
Okay. And that's it for our show today. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed talking to you, and this is the first time I've done this mode for an interview, and we survived it.
Only very small technical difficulties. We were on at 6 o'clock where we're supposed to be. That's a definite plus. Well, if you ever decide that you wish to come back on, you know where to find me, and it'd be nice to have you back. Definitely. And by the way, I love out of the covers that I've seen, I love Gaia's cover the most with the green. Really? That is gorgeous.
Thank you, thank you. Jenny was pushing the green. I wasn't quite sure about it. I'm more of a muted color person, so I was wondering how that would be received. But it's cool because everyone loves the green, and people pointed out that there's not a lot of books out there with kind of the green hues, and I thought, yeah, you know, that's very true. So it popped.
Definitely stand out.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. You can click off.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
And again, the giveaways are for a signed copy of Temptation, a signed copy of Embers, and a signed copy of Rachel's Deception. And then I also have a whole bunch of bookmarks to give away as well. So something for almost everybody. So definitely enter the giveaway. The links are now up on the event page on Google+. And definitely tune in if you've been paying attention to all the little things that are going on. This Friday at 4 p.m. I will be doing my book bragging as well as talking about Ember in the Ashes and The Taking by Kimberly Durting. And the other one was from, I know I'm going to butcher her name, Sabar Tahir. I think that's what her name is, which I will actually get to meet her on the 31st as she will be going to GeekyCon here in Ohio. Can't say I'm not happy about that. And then tune in next week on Monday, next Monday. I don't remember the time off the top of my head, but we will be trying it up again for, it's at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will be talking with author Sherry Ficklin again, which is amazing. I love her when she comes on. Well, I love her anyway, but for Queen of Tomorrow. So I will actually have a set to give away for that. So those should be here on Thursday. So right now, Queen of Someday, the last time I checked, it was free on Amazon. So if you don't have it, I highly recommend it. I will go see if it is still free for Kindle. And it is still free for Kindle, so I will actually post this link in there. These are definitely one of those books that I would prefer to have in print because they're just so gorgeous. But that is definitely my recommendation for this chat. If you haven't read Embers, do so. And as well as Queen of Someday, Queen of Someday. I always get those two titles mixed up. Someday. All right. So I hope you guys had a great time, and definitely enter the giveaway. And I guess I will see you guys on Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, when you get to see everything I got from Jacksonville, as well as everything else that I've gotten in the mail. And my poor table is overflowing, worse than it was last month. All right, I'll catch you guys later. Bye.